Picture this. You're a teacher in a psychological study at Yale University. There is a learner in the next room. Every time they answer wrong, you press a button. The button delivers shock. Electric shock. 15 volts, then 75, then 150, all the way up to 450 volts. At 300 volts, they're pounding in the wall. At 330 volts, complete silence. You're told this is about memory and learning by big authorities. How far would you go? Or guess what percentage of people went all the way up to 450 volts in the original study? Pause here, answer the poll in the captions, then come back to see what really happened. Milgram, the researcher, thought almost nobody would go all the way. He asked psychiatrists to predict how many would reach the maximum voltage. Psychiatrists predicted 1%. They were catastrophically wrong. 65 out of 100 people went up to 450 volts. That's 2/3 of the ordinary Americans. These were accountants, teachers, students, sweating, shaking and crying, all willing to hurt someone just because a man in a white coat said, "This experiment requires you to continue." Worse, 100% went to at least 300 volts, the point where the victim was pounding on the wall. And these weren't sadists. They were sweating and trembling. Some laughed nervously, and a few had a full-blown panic attacks. But they kept on going anyway because the scientist, an authoritative figure, told them to continue. Milgram tested variations to understand why. When the experiment moved from Yale University to a random office building, obedience dropped to 48%. The prestigious location provided a psychological cover. When the experiment left and gave instructions by phone, only 20% continued. Authority requires physical presence. When participants had to physically force the learner's hand onto the shock plate, only 30% obeyed. Direct contact with harm breaks the abstraction. When other teachers refused, obedience collapsed to 10%. Seeing others say no gives permission to resist. When two experimenters contradicted each other, obedience dropped to 0. Authority requires consensus. This is how ordinary people do terrible things. Most ordinary people will hurt someone if an authority figure provides a social framework that says it's acceptable. It's not about evil, it's about situational pressures overriding individual conscience. The authority figure, the official location, and the phrase, "the experiment requires you to continue," were enough to make people do things they knew were wrong. Every day you're in situations where these variables are active. Your workplace, your social circle, your political tribe. You think you're choosing freely. You may be just responding to the situational architecture designed to manufacture compliance.